Hey, lovely people, and welcome to Transformational Sound Therapy Phase 2. And today we've got the awesome Randy Masters. Randy is a composer, harmonic mathematician, and a master teacher of many disciplines, including esoteric and exoteric sciences, which reveal the precise harmonics of our universal life field. He's an international lecturer, author, an in-depth researcher on the pyramids, sacred sites, the mathematical language of light, and the harmonics of sacred numbers. His not-so-mystery school in Aptos, California features weekend intensives in sacred geometry, physiometry, tuning forks, sound and music, and ancient esoteric studies. In his early career, Randy composed and performed with many world-renowned musicians such as Tito Puente, Charlie Bird, Lou Harrison, and Zole Sounds from Ghana, and Ashwin Batish from India. Solar Plexus, winning numerous awards and grants for his compositions and recordings. He produced movie soundtracks, including an Italian music score for Voyage of the Heart, and for a Latin American score for The Situation. He taught jazz, popular and world music at UC Santa Cruz and San Jose State University, and currently teaches at Community School of Music and Arts in Mountain View and the California Institute of Psychoacoustics in San Francisco. Randy's students have gone on to win Grammy nominations, other prestigious awards, and record contracts with major record labels. His universal song classes help connect the dots of a loving and intelligent universe, leading to more respect for ours and other worlds. Randy spent his lifetime exploring the mysteries of science, spirituality, and the arts, combining his knowledge of music, maths, physics, and art. His company, Resonant Living, produces products, instruments, and jewelry that are tuned to the universal harmonics and the world of geometry, sacred sites, and ancient musical traditions. Amazing, Randy. So blessed to have you with us. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, you're a busy guy, and I love it. Just like, wow. There's some epic wisdom. It's going to be an amazing interview, really.
Yeah, I work in my sleep.
Yes, I know. What do you? Well, you sleep. I'm surprised you have the time. Your website, Universal Song, welcomes us to discover the mystery of sacred geometry and sacred harmonic relationships as they appear in nature, and how their integration in design enhances our being. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, it's all about resonances with the unified field, and you can express it in sound and music, light, sacred geometry, artwork. All of that can celebrate these relationships. And so that's why I do it. I mean, I'm illuminating the relationships as I've uncovered and discovered and recovered, but I'm also, it's about celebrating these relationships of the Creator and the fact that we've been given the opportunity to see things, some things from the Creator's eye. And that's very a moving experience. The closer you get to that core, is very moving and alters one's behavior to be consistent with living resonantly and respecting life and celebrating all of life.
That's really interesting, because that really resonates with what we were saying before we came on about how, it is about being one with nature, and how important the indigenous message is right now, and how a lot of all this kind of darker stuff that is happening is actually just a fear of nature.
That's primarily the fundamental fear that I see that's creating a lot of our problems, is an illusion of separation that includes this fear of nature. And then the next thing that happens, I think, historically, is that beings with a fear of nature want to control nature instead of cooperate and work with nature. Yeah. And that's where it gets off. And I could see most behavior throughout humanity and so on revolving around that fear.
It's the kind of fear of like being out of control of yourself, isn't it, really? So having to control everything around you, because then you can feel better about actually feeling completely out of control in yourself, which is just that separation.
Yeah.
you know, and a lot of disease like addiction is said to be separation, you know, just any kind of disease is where you're not at one with, you know, with your divine self, really. Your body is not resonating in harmony with, you know, who it essentially is. And we've seen that repeatedly where, you know, people are being healed by coming into harmonic resonance with themselves.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the main problems in science is that separation, and trying to prove the illusion of the separation is where the insanity is.
Yeah. Yeah, and then all the subdivisions of all the different religions. Actually, it's all love.
Definitely, yeah.
I love what Dale Pond said about, you know, love is actually, when we talk about, you know, the universe is love, that's actually physics, you know, it's sympathetic vibration. It is.
Yeah, the Keeley book is called The Physics of Love, one of the books he wrote.
Amazing.
John Keeley.
Yeah.
Very nice title.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, I was actually really chuffed doing that interview because I realized I actually understood more about physics than I realized, which was great. It's not that complicated when you understand the same.
Well, this harmonic world, physics is not the real physics, creational physics is what I call it. It's not left brain science.
Yeah.
It's whole brain, it's whole being. Miracles and things that are called miracles is another level of physics.
Yeah, you've nailed it there. Yeah, because maybe that's the separation, and maybe that was deliberate, you know, to put us in the classroom, give us all this in-depth physics that most of us just came out there going, what the hell was that? You know, I don't understand, because it never connected anything together.
No.
It was like I learned like logarithms and, you know, kind of sines and cosines and tangents. I never put them into context of the world, or, you know, kind of platonic solids, or how anything worked, you know. Physics, it was kind of, you know, dropping a ball onto the table, you know, just like none of it ever sort of came together and connected up. So it's
supposed to be about interconnectivity, interdependence, and then we would be excited to learn about it because it connects with our life. I have so many people come to classes with phobias against math and things because they had experiences where it wasn't connected. They don't know. It's, for me, the math, the way I do it, it's all musical. It's like a musical score.
Yeah.
I can work with a calculator and gazillions of numbers in front of me, and it's like I'm working with a musical score. I'm hearing things, the musical relationships in the math. And it's very exciting.
Yeah.
I never thought it would go there because I was playing music and composing. I never thought I would go off into this realm, but it swept me so far out to sea. You know, I'm riding these waves, and that's just how it is now.
You can't unsee it, can you?
No, it changes you forever, you know. I would stay up all night doing these things because I felt like I was able to peer into the mind of the creator more and more.
Amazing. Yeah.
And that's what the joy is and what motivates me to do that and see the harmonic relationships, and then realize that those harmonic relationships, the way I'm looking at it, are musical. Same laws of resonance and vibration, laws of vibration, all musical. So to me, it's in the beginning was the word. It's like that's where it's coming from. Then light got created. Now light works with the sound, but they're two different things and they work together. But the idea of being born out of the sound, out of the word, well, of course, that didn't express being born out of the thought. Most of the texts don't really get down to the creative part of the thinking, which a lot of people are uncovering now in terms of where we're coming from, where are we thinking from, what are our beliefs, core beliefs, and that's all great stuff that Bruce Lipton and others are revealing, and Greg Braden and others. Beautiful. Where we're thinking from before we utter the words.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the fact that on another level, that even the thoughts are creating sound that we might not hear in ourselves and in other people, and in reality, our thoughts are creating sounds.
And that's surely like going up another level again, you know, where it's like divine love, divine light. So is there a dimension of divine light, the solar logos, the creator consciousness before the word, like you're saying, that then comes in and creates the light. So there's like, you know, it's just the different layers and dimensions of.
I see those divine layers representing the world without separation. It's
Yeah, exactly.
100,000% interconnected.
Yeah.
Connectivity with everything.
So yeah, bouncing off one another.
That kind of a concert where all the musicians hear and respect each other and are dancing together. That's making it work.
Yeah.
Cosmic organism.
Yeah, it's a sympathetic resonance again.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what runs me.
Yeah. You say that when we use the word sacred geometry, we are saying that the ancient builders used the same ratio and proportion as nature in the design, layout, and construction in their temples, monuments, churches, aqueducts, or even a house. And why shouldn't we live resonantly with the rest of the universe and flow with the fractal patterns of creation, so what is inside us and outside of us matches, resonates, and forms our common divine nature? Pretty much what we're just saying.
We have to use those same principles in order to resonate with it, instead of making up something else that doesn't resonate and wondering why it feels like it's out of phase. Because we have all these codes anywhere from the microscope to the telescope, micro to macrocosm, and we have our body is completely encoded with it. So why not build everything in line with those principles, so that everything resonates together, instead of this aberration, you know, the wrong angles in a building that create negative energies in a building with 90-degree corners, and there's all that type of thing that can be avoided. And the ancients saw that. A lot of the ancients, not necessarily because it was ancient and everybody was in tune, but the wise ancients did that. And they were able to, they didn't have to have refrigerators. They knew how to do heating and cooling completely with natural means. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You say, thus, every construction is a prayer of gratitude and praise to creation. And so we can hear the universal song in nature, in art, in music, in the stars, and in your heart. And we are now perhaps getting an idea of what the music of the spheres is all about.
Well, you hear that term, music of the spheres, but a lot of the books that talk about it really didn't come out and say what music of the spheres is.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they used the phrase, and a lot of people have assumed what that's supposed to mean, or what those who are saying that mean by it.
It's very
romantic. And it's not that something has to be spherical to fit this definition. To me, it's all about spheres of consciousness. The sphere is a big P, meaning 360 every possible which way, communicating in dialogue with reality in every conceivable angle and everything. Not just the planets, but they also behave according to these ratios and their various kinds of trajectories and everything that goes on with the planets. The math of it is amazing, totally amazing. I mean, and it gets down to a lot of things I'll be writing about that I'm working about that. I just recently, a while ago, discovered that the frequency of the sidereal day, which is, 23 hours, 56 minutes, 4.091 seconds, not 24-hour day, the sidereal day, converted into sound in a particular octave, you get 194.712 hertz, okay? Those are the first six numbers of the key angle in the tetrahedron, 19.47122, etc.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
In other words, the frequency of a day in a certain octave is 10 times the famous tetrahedral 19.47 angle.
What does that mean to our time? Because we're not on that. What if we?
I'm looking at that.
What if we did go back to having a 23 point? I can't remember exactly what you say. Hour day.
Yeah, 23 hours, 56 minutes, 4.091 seconds. Well, I see a phase shift in there because the 24-hour solar day is in a high octave. When you convert it to sound, you get 8.54, etc. trillion hertz. That's the maximum resonance of the DNA, according to scientist Fritz Popp's study at the University of Marburg.
Wow.
So that is important. So here's this dynamic between the the sidereal day and the 24-hour day. There's something, a little flex in there. And I'm looking at what that means and what's happening in reality as a result of that. That's a very good question. I think both are important.
It's again, it goes back to the resonance, doesn't it? Surely if we're living, I mean, it's a totally different discussion, but it's, you could compare it with the 432, the 440.
Well, I was just going to even say that too.
We're tweaked out of our natural harmonic resonance. Our body's going to feel that. Our mind is going to feel that,
It's just like any changes in the Schumann resonance that take place.
Yeah.
And right now, there's a lot of sacred sites around the world that are putting out this frequency called the trithalmic frequency, which is 1.45 hertz down in delta, which is a G flat note, by the way. And it is a particular ratio to the Schumann resonance of 7.83. There's the like 5.4 times the 1.45 gives you the Schumann resonance. Yeah. Complete musical coherency between this frequency. The trithalmic balances the hypothalamus, the pituitary pineal with the heart. That's 4 key things with this one frequency.
Yeah, wow.
And we don't hear 1.45, but we can get the pulsation. So Alexander Putney wrote a book called Phi, and he's listed all these different sacred sites all over the world, lots of them, they've been measuring this 1.45. Mm-hmm. So now,
where have they measured it? Sorry, where?
Different pyramids and sacred sites. Okay. Like he's got about 127 of them listed in his book, with the longitude and latitude and everything.
Okay.
Very interesting. And of course, right now there's a lot of study of sacred sites and the frequencies that they're putting out, and beams that are coming out of them that they photographed. So it's not like just something that clairvoyants see.
It's not random. Yeah, not at all.
There's something going on a giant level in the Earth grid.
Yeah, a very good friend of mine, Jean-Michel, worked.
I love his work.
Not Jean-Michel. My friend is John O'Neill, and he works with Jean-Michel, the sacred geometer. And John Neal actually discovered what many of the the people in his field had been looking at for a long time, was why was there a little discrepancy as these pyramids kind of went around the curvature of the earth, and he kind of he went really deep into it all, and he actually figured out in the end that it was because of the latitude and the longitude and the curvature of the earth. There was a slight discrepancy, and he's got the numbers down to a T. He's like, there are no errors in any of these structures, any of these temples, any of these stone circles. They were deliberate. If there's anything out, then that was meant to be out. And he knows all about the Greek mile, and he's
all that stuff. Yeah.
And when I went to him with like, are you aware of this 432 and these, this 528 and all these other numbers, he was like, oh my God, these are in the pyramids, these are in the stone circles, these, we kind of sat as, I've got some fascinating.
Well, the megalithic mile, 5,280 feet, that's not a modern invention. That's a megalithic number.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's where he was just like, wow, Jen, what have
and even with the Giza pyramid, every single one of the 8 sides, that's it actually, because it's indented. It's actually an 8-sided pyramid, slightly indented on each side. But the measurements of each side are all different. It adds up to a certain key number, but every one of those sides is different. To me, that has to do with the shape shifting and flexing of something where the discrepancies are built in for a very high purpose and with a very high intelligence for what that is. My actual feeling about the pyramid is a living structure, and it can shapeshift in such a way that it will change some of the measurements based on where the researchers are coming from.
Interesting.
I mean, that's a little bit wild. But the livingness of it, why not? Living stones, all aspects of nature.
Well, they've discovered with a lot of the Stonehenge, this is xylophone.
Mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't it move around? You know,
Yeah.
everything's energy, everything's vibrations, just some's denser than others, you know, so.
And one of the measurements at Stonehenge is the 264, which is half of the 528 there at Station Stone Rectangle. 264 feet is one of the dimensions of that Station Stone Rectangle. Very, very important how all those numbers still talk, because that's the harmonic code, the resonant code. You need to use certain numbers to be dialed into the conversation and be in phase with nature's higher matrix of thought.
Yeah. Yeah, what I find interesting with Stoke, because of course everybody's there this morning. They were all there with the solstice. What I found interesting was that everybody was, everybody thought they had to look through the middle stone, and actually, kind of years down the line, it's like, hey guys, you're looking the wrong way. It needs to be winter solstice, and you need to actually be faced the other way. You've had it the wrong way around all this time. But does it really matter? Because it's just such a phenomenal structure.
Well, there's a lot of music in Stonehenge, and I've studied the measurements and how they musically speak. It's a total harmonic stargate where certain numbers are built in there. I have a little reconstructed model of it in the perfected state. It's fun, and I use that for like a little altar about what that is.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I study the sites, and then I get the numbers and get the measurements, and then I look at the harmonic organization of those numbers, including the prime numbers that are inside the number.
You should check out John Neal's book. I think you'd really enjoy it. It's called All Done with Mirrors. I think you can still get it on Amazon. You would enjoy it. It's full of, it's a bit beyond me with all the numbers.
Send me a link on that if you would. That'd be great.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. It's really, I think you'd resonate with that.
Well, this is the time for many of us to come together and share the kinds of insights that we've been deep down the rabbit holes with.
Absolutely.
And then be able to progress as a committee that discusses and shares, and not competes, but cooperates.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my vision of it.
Yeah. It's definitely the time for it. Your numerous musical compositions are living examples of the music of the spheres. And many have heard or read that the quote from Pythagoras that there is a geometry in the humming of strings, and other similar comments that use the phrase the music of the spheres. The term refers to the sonic resonance and vibrations of planets and moons and all the various vibratory phenomena that they emit, whether we hear them or not. So there is music of the spheres in our celestial bodies. Then we have sounds of rain, water flowing on or falling on rocks, pounding rumbles of surf, earthquakes, cracking thunder, explosive volcanoes, landslides, and glaciers breaking. This is all words from your website. And you say that the music of the spheres is about consciousness of creation, restoring the harmonious balance of the male and female polarity so that we can all sing and dance, and the illusion of separation between heaven and earth can be healed.
That's my statement, and it's poetic. And
it's
my dream is that we can live poetically with those kind of words. We live that way. That's our actual experience, rather than worlds in fear and control and all of that stuff. But to live poetically, I believe, is the original creative design.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to that. I mean, I see a beautiful image there of just this beautiful, harmonic resonance coming down from, all the sounds in the universe, all the different planets, and, every sound that is made, just sort of coming down and pouring through us, and just bringing that connection, bringing that divinity into us. We're an instrument.
It's not been easy for a lot of the famous composers, even in the European traditions that everybody knows, because once they had an experience where they heard that celestial sound, anything from near-death experiences or meditation or what illnesses, and they heard it, whatever happened to them, the sadness that many of the composers had, that they couldn't represent that level of beauty. They were failing in a way. To be able to bring that, they did everything they could with everything they knew, and they were geniuses and creative in every way, and still could only touch that world to a certain degree. It's not always easy once one has heard that and seen certain kinds of light where you don't necessarily see that in your day. And even Beethoven's last string quartets, where he tapped into unconditional love then, after he was quote unquote deaf. not that he couldn't hear, I mean, the normal hearing, but he was hearing realms that he put into that music. It gave a lot of people courage to listen to the later Beethoven works. And I'm not holding classical music above anything in the world. I'm just saying it's just as a master, one of the things that he was able to do was tap into that level of love. A lot of composers have passion, they have love, many things, but not all of them tapped into that level of the divine with love.
Yeah, it's that translating of the divine, like you say, being aware of it, being connected with it, and then actually translating it. I look at like painting sometimes, and I just think, why would you even try and recreate this beautiful creation, and then like, why not? Why wouldn't you,
There's honor in the attempt, no matter
Exactly.
how much you feel you failed to reach what you're doing. The fact that you even try and give it every bit out of your being is a very worthy pursuit.
Yeah, exactly.
And not to be judged, really.
Yeah, no,
it's keep striving.
Yeah, again, it's that being the channel, isn't it? It's the honoring and being that channel, and that instrument of the divine. That's what we're here for, to bring that through, to bring that energy through, and
the striving for excellence is a very spiritual pursuit that one is able to do that. I had an experience walking on the beach back, I think around 1980, on the beach by my house. And I look over, and all of a sudden, the being that we know as Jesus, Yeshua, is walking beside me. But what was interesting is he was dressed as a gentleman out of Nashville with all the country clothes and everything, the boots. No, that is not beach attire. I don't know who he in the world he's shown up as, and I never been to Nashville even in this life. So I ended up composing a piece of music based on that experience.
Wow.
Yeah, a country song with classical chords in it. And I produced it and used it in a movie that I did. And the scene was in a pool bar, and it was on the jukebox. That was the song playing on the jukebox. I thought, of all the contexts, if people really knew how that song was born, the experience that I had, and I've had people go, brings tears to their eyes, some people listening to it. They got something from that. Yeah. It fit the scene, but it was because I had a showering of some type of level of vibration. And because of the Nashville thing, I used that. I mean, it's not like I specialized in country music, although I have written a bunch of it. That's out of the ordinary for what people mostly know of my music. But I took it really seriously. I mean, I got a download, so to speak. Yeah. You just never know what's going to inspire you. Exactly. What's going to happen, This being named Yeshua showing up as a country gentleman. So anyway.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's amazing.
It's the path. You don't know what's going to occur on this path. I'm doing my best to walk a harmonic path. And it's surprises all the time with things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I use with sound healing. And the whole idea is using tuning forks and things with sacred numbers. A lot of the numbers are because of those codes. They're like cell phone numbers. I make them to archangels. I make them to the whole tree of life and the Kabbalah, various things where the numbers are magical numbers, just like those vortex numbers that came out of what people were calling the solfeggios, that type of thing. Of which, by the way, there are 18 numbers and not 6. But the pattern that Joseph Paleo found was a repeating number pattern of 6 numbers. Each was 3 digits in it that occurred over and over and over as a pattern. So what I did is I just saw them as anagrams of the 1, 4, 7, 2, 5, 8, and 3, 6, 9, of which there's going to be 6 possibilities, and that created 18. And a friend that I hadn't met at that time, Judy Cole, her guides gave her all 18 numbers. It said, these are called Zobet, Z-O-B-E-T, Hebrew for in the house of the Lord, and call Randy Masters. He's your math music guy. And so she tracked me down around in the world until, so maybe 12, 15 years, we've been doing further research on this stuff. And one of the projects was having a recording of these frequencies played through a hydrophone dropped into the water in San Francisco Bay to help clean the water because
Yeah.
of the power of these vortex math numbers as frequencies. There's something very special going on there. They wanted Michael Hutchison wanted to apply them to the Gulf oil spill. But
I
the
remember.
powers that be wouldn't let him do that. But he could prove that he could help clean up oil in the water using these sound frequencies.
Who wouldn't let him do that? Sorry.
Certain powers that be would not let him even
Okay.
apply this technology to help clean up that oil spill mess. But it was interesting that the application of sound for clearing pollution.
Yeah, they used Corexit instead, didn't they? Because I ended up being a victim of that unwittingly, swimming with dolphins in that mess.
Wow.
Which really damaged my health, and it's one of the reasons that I got into healing the way I did so deeply.
Wow, that I brought that up. Wow.
Yeah,
There's something.
Yeah, and that's actually when I met Judy when I went to Hawaii for some healing. You know, I was actually very ill. And a lot of people who were exposed to that are actually now developing cancer.
Wow.
10 years down the line, you know, they used a carcinogenic substance instead of, you know, trying. Why wouldn't they try out a frequency if it's proving that it's actually doing some good, you know?
Well, wouldn't you think that water would understand these codes, and then it could adjust itself because it's now being given a type of sonic nutrition, numerical coded nutrition, and it knows alchemically what to do with those numbers.
Yeah.
That's the intelligence of water, the way I feel it.
Yeah, and it's the memory of every drop as well, isn't it? You put that drop in, it has that memory of this harmony, and that will then spread to, you know, going back to the sympathetic vibration, that will spread to everything.
And two of those numbers, the 528 and 396, which are built on 11, are in harmony with two sound frequencies that have been isolated for water, 44 hertz, which is an F based on 11, and 66 hertz, which is several octaves lower than the 528, that C. They form a perfect fifth. 66 over 44 is a perfect fifth, 3/2, and it's a stable interval. And then there's another one for water that is 22.5, which has to do with a sound frequency that helps for water hydration. Okay. And of course, that's in sacred geometry, 22.5 degrees, half of 45, and goes on from there. Now that's in a different pitch category than the 44 and the 66, but there's interesting frequencies in water. I've been studying also the infrared analysis, scientific infrared analysis of water in all the different states, frozen, liquid, and gaseous states of water, and looking at what those frequencies are. Because I feel very strongly that with certain harmonic codes can be used for cleaning up the water problems.
Yeah, I do believe the same. I do feel, you know, like we were saying before we came on, I did the 528 ceremony with Dr. Emoto back in 2009 LA. You know, we just all, and it was around the world. He coordinated it around the world. We all stood by the ocean. We had tuning forks. We had crystal bowls. You know, we were all tuning the 528 into the ocean, and I swear we had an effect. You know, you could it was like you could feel it. You know, you could feel the energy of this, and it was on the solstice as well. It was today, you know, 10 years ago.
Like the global Om today was the global Om ceremony. So we're synchronizing, and in that that's wherever two or more are gathered in my name. For the right purposes too. Not just gathering, but with that intent, and harmonically using harmonics to amplify that intent, and vice versa.
Daniel Brower would have been doing that today as well with his 432 crystal orchestra. He has a 432 crystal bowl orchestra that he does synchronized ceremonies around the world on the solstice and the equinoxes. So he would have been out there.
Well, that's 432's come up a bunch. Do you mind a few comments on the 432?
No, let's delve into the 432. Now we're here, absolutely.
Well, at one time, that was Paris standard tuning, was 432 hertz. They established that was their key. Like, how long is a meter? And it's changed all over the years, the length of the meter in Europe. Even the building of Chartres Cathedral had many different lengths of a meter. They didn't use one standard length of a meter. So bureaus of standards and measurements is a big thing, as is stabilizing a certain reference pitch. Then later it went to 435 before it was shifted through the International Conference in 1955, I think it was, that voted to have 440 be the international standard. There was reasons for doing that a lot had to do also with international manufacturing of instruments. So now throughout history, different composers had their pet notes that they used. Mozart was 421.6, which is a half a step lower than where A440 is. And they called it an A in his day. Handel was 422.5. And the trumpet player, John Shore, in Handel's orchestra was the one that brought the tuning fork into the European history back in, I think, 1736 or 17-something, 30-something. And 422.5, very, very interesting. By the way, 10 times that frequency is one of the frequencies in the dolphin brain. 4,225 hertz is one of the studies of frequencies relative to dolphins. That's interesting. Not that Handel necessarily was in tune with dolphins, and who knows why he chose to do that. So, and Baroque time back in Bach and all was like 415, which is basically A flat G sharp area, half step below. So this pitch thing has been changing all over Europe. Different cities, different cathedrals had organs and things that were tuned differently. It was really very confusing in a lot of ways. And so there's been attempts to try to standardize it for different reasons.
Yeah.
But a lot of research has been done on the frequencies. What I find interesting is that people don't talk about the 435, because 435 is in the same pitch musical tuning structure as the Schumann 7.83 is, built on prime number 29, and each prime number is a very important part of the number. So I'm surprised that more people have not been playing around again with the 435A because of where the Schumann mainly resides now. Okay, so now with the 440, it's not a bad number, and a lot of research has been done showing beautiful things from that. There's 440 cubits in the base length of the Great Pyramid. If you use a certain size cubit, it's very famous that it's 440 by 280 cubits high is one of the combination measurements. So it's not that 440 should be giving a bad rap. I've seen scientific photographs of blood studies in hospitals subjected to 440 hertz and how beautiful it is. It's like an angel appeared. Fabian Mamon's got pictures of it in his book, The Tao of Sound. It's absolutely gorgeous. And a lot of my life, my professional music life and everything, was playing music centering around 440. I've heard gorgeous music from all over. But the thing with the 432, the thing with the 432 is the way that mathematics links up with sacred geometry.
Yeah.
And links up with all the numbers like 86,400 seconds in a day, and because it's actually built on prime 27, which you can get from Richard Merrick's book. You know, he's talking in either Interference and in his book, The Venus Blueprint, analysis of the church in Roslin Chapel in Scotland is built on a 432 and a 27 hertz fundamental.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
The entrance to it, isn't it? Resonates at 432.
Yeah. There's a lot of things. But when you look at the amount of numbers and the 864,000 miles in the average diameter of the sun and 2,160 miles in the diameter of the moon and all that, all divided by 27 and 432. Yeah. It goes on and on. There's so many correspondence.
The yogi's beads.
Yeah, and 108 beads in the mala, 108 different meridians in the body. It goes, the list is huge. The number 432 is talking to the field in all these categories, right? So more than you see, 440 is not doing that. And I'm not trying to give it a bad rap. I'm just saying that it doesn't have those correspondences.
Mm-hmm.
So when we play in 432, we are resonating with all the correspondences with 432.
Mm-hmm.
And that adds a momentum and a field effect to that number that's very, very, very interesting.
Yeah. John Stuart Reid says it resonates with light.
Well, basically, one way, if you take 432 and square it, and you get 186,600 and what is it, 42 miles per second for the speed of light. Okay, when you divide that number down by octaves, you get 729 as the fundamental number.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 186,624 is a high octave of 729 that has to do with light. And that's one of the codes that I found in hydrogen, where some of the harmonic codes all centered around the number 729.
Wow.
So this goes on. And those are Chinese numbers. When I do sound healing for acupuncture and all, I built on the ancient Chinese musical system. It's all built on multiples of 3 and 2, exactly, exclusively multiples of those two numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And the same was in Babylonian times. I produced an album called Inner Vision with Joel Andrews playing harp, playing in the ancient Babylonian tunings that they found on clay tablets. And it said, this is how we tuned the harp. So I had him play them in those modes on the harp to establish that. You get the same tunings are available in India, China, a lot of Egypt, ancient Egypt. Also, the ancient Hathor tuning was the same thing. Those numbers are not only the sound frequencies, but they're also the sacred numbers in the tuning. So there's a big conversation going on in doing that,
Yes.
of which 440 doesn't have any of those correspondences.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, I've studied this for my master's. I did a dissertation. Well, I've done a few, actually. I did case studies, I did experiments, and I did my dissertation. I got Marie Reynolds' book put into University of West of England so I could study this.
Yeah.
But some people will say, well, how do you know what, and I know they say this about the 528, and the monks used to chant at 528. How do we know? I mean, I know the Stradivarius violin. They can test what frequency it was meant to be tuned at, can't they? But, when you go further back, how can you kind of say, well, this is what frequency they were, doing this in, or, singing in, or making music in, or, this was the pitch that they used. How do we know that?
You can test the acoustics of the Stradivarius violins and see what they resonate to. It's not a mystery at all.
No, I know. I'm saying that, but
432 and a C sharp of about 270 or 540, which also relates to sacred geometry. Yeah. And 432, I mean, that was Verdi's pitch during his time. Giuseppe Verdi, the composer.
Put my light on.
I think you could test it.
Disappearing into the dark. Probably not much different, actually.
Let there be light.
Yeah. We got a little bit anyway. It's not.
I can hear the light bulb now.
It's coming into my head.
It's like you got a light coming down.
Yeah, it's great.
Downloading to you for our conversation.
Zapped.
But I mean, all that stuff can be tested. And people should see the movie, The Red Violin, to see. That's a very interesting movie about what happened with that violin.
Yeah.
And about thought and a certain event it took place that got trapped in the energy of the violin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a very interesting movie about the resonance and strange behavior as a result of what happened around the making of that violin.
Nice.
But resonances are very, very important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Marie Reynolds' experiments were very much, that because she did it over a long period and with a lot of people, where she's, her conclusion was that when people were immersed in 432 music, they were more gentle, more kind, more calm, more relaxed.
It is more relaxed. There's more tension.
More amiable, and when they listened to 440, they were more aggressive and, just kind of more edgy and tense, and and she studied with quite a lot of people. It wasn't just sort of one random case study. She did it over a long period of time.
My acoustic piano is tuned to 432.
Oh, nice.
And, I give music lessons, so I have to use equal temperament so the guitars can play along and that. But I have other keyboard where I use the Maria Reynolds 12/5 tuning, where all the white keys on the piano are tuned to a 432 in perfect fifths, Pythagorean style. And then you use an equal tempered tritone, like C up to F sharp or C up to G flat, which is the square root of 2. So you multiply the C by the square root of 2. Now I've got the frequency of the G flat or F sharp note. It has both names. Then you do another perfect fifths on the black keys, centering on F sharp. And you put the two together, and that's how this tuning is created. And it's an amazing tuning structure. It's called the 12/5 tuning. It's not, and I can play all styles of music, jazz, rock, pop, except I can't have guitar players play with my keyboard unless I had a custom fretboard because the frets are not in the right place. But I had found that to be an absolutely fascinating tuning system. And I could do that tuning system based on any reference point, C's or A's. I could do it off of 444 if I wanted to, which, by the way, a lot of people are experimenting with also tuning 444, even though there's more tension than in 440 even, and certainly more than in 432. That's a very magical cell rejuvenation frequency. And a lot of people are experimenting in sound healing circles with also a 444 as well. But that 444 is not speaking to all those discrete mathematical correspondences that the 432 has.
Yeah,
it's unique. 432 is absolutely unique in that way.
This is amazing information for people that are really drawn to specific frequencies, because people sometimes ask me, what frequency should I use? What bowl should I get? I don't know, I don't know the answer to that. If you're drawn to something, then go with your intuition, so this is actually really, really good to hear, the different sort of reasonings and the different histories and the different science. And
there's a lot of different resonances, but what happens with a lot of people when they start putting a collection of bowls together, whether it's Tibetan metal bowls or the crystal bowls, is the bowls are not often compatible in harmony together. They sound beautiful on their own, but they don't work in tuning together. And it takes a lot more effort to put that together.
I've just had, I had 15 bowls. I had a set of 12, which I was told when I bought them was for the 7 and the 5 chakras. And so I just had them for years. I did test them actually, and I did some recordings with them and things, but I wasn't as deep into it as I am now. And I would take them all out and play them, on 11/11/11. We went out and did an amazing ceremony, and everybody was playing them. The place went off. It was amazing. But it was kind of a few years after that even that I just started really taking it quite seriously. It's like, what are these frequencies? Do they go together? And then I started asking people who were like yourself, know more about the different frequencies. Do they actually, are they creating harmony, or are they actually creating disharmony here? And I've actually since split my set up. Some people have just been like, oh my God, that's your set of bowls. But it's, and talking to Daniel Brower, it's like, well, I could have actually put water in them because you can change the frequency that way.
Sure, you can do that.
I could have made them a harmonic set that way, but I'm kind of moving into different, doing different things. But yeah, I think it's quite important, and it's being aware of all the different levels that we are working on. If you are going to work in this way, then, it is quite important to make sure that you're bringing harmony, that you're bringing frequencies that are going to be beneficial to people, not just kind of, well, I'll just, throw this together and hope for the best. There is a science to it, and there is actually some real valid reasons behind why we do these things, why we tune to these certain frequencies.
I'd like to add a couple more comments relative to 440 that I think is interesting. The purpose of saying this is also to take some of the mystique and some of the bad rap that 440 has gotten due to internet knowledge, internet talk.
They look out for the Nazis.
They measured sacred sites all over the world to see what the site was, including the hypogeum in Malta, underground temple, okay? And of all these sacred sites, there were two frequencies that they gave off, one or the other, 110 hertz or 111 hertz, not 108, which is surprising in a way to me, given all this that we're talking about. I would have suspected that. However, 110 is 1/4 of 440. And also, 440 itself is a product of two Fibonacci numbers, 8 times 55. So, okay, there's some Fibonacci nature wisdom built into that note, okay? Then 111 is a famous cell rejuvenation frequency, but that was not as common as the 110. The purpose of it was to put people into the gamma, high, like beta, above 32 hertz, you get into gamma frequencies.
Okay.
By being in a certain high frequency there, they were conducive in their brain state to the spiritual work that they were doing in the temple. And they found that when wind blowed through some of these temples, it produced those frequencies just from the wind blowing through the underground temple. I thought that's pretty interesting, to build a temple and tune it so the wind will produce that frequency. That was very special. Then also, they did studies of trees, redwood trees, sequoia, whatever, and the trees are communicating with sound frequencies in their roots. And the typical range is 200 hertz, which is a D sharp, up to 200 hertz, which is a G sharp, up to 300 hertz, which is a D sharp. That's a range of a perfect fifth there. And in that narrow range, the most common frequency they found with the trees was 220 hertz, half of 440.
Wow.
You wonder, okay, what? Were the trees listening to all the 440 music by all the campers and people? What's going on here? Why did they choose that? I mean, I'm kind of kidding around, but on another level, you wonder, have the trees picked up something that's in the air that humans have been doing, and then they went along with that? Or what is that, you know?
Maybe the other way around.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty I play with things because sometimes you go to a ridiculous place and you actually get the answers.
Yeah.
You know, because it takes you outside of all the logic and linear thinking. But I find that interesting, very. And I've heard also of studies done of fish in the ocean and other places, and the songs that the fish are singing.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, dolphins, fine. Whales, you know, we know about that. But fish singing, is that cool?
I love, this is on your website, the sonic.
I mean, and next time I'm out diving somewhere, I hope I can hear. I would love to hear the fish sing. I never have when I've been diving.
You've heard the whales though, yeah. I remember when I was in Hawaii, I went to the bottom of the bed. I wasn't very far out, so I could get down to the bottom, and I could hear the humpback singing. Oh my God. And I was just like, it was like, oh my God. And I just kept coming up for air and then just, and then just going back down, because that was phenomenal. And it's like the sound just seems to travel, obviously through the water, but because I was closer to the ocean floor, I could really feel it as well. And it was just like, how many are there? Where are they? What are they singing? You know, the whale song is just phenomenal. But yeah, it's
they sing in the whale channels, and they can carry those sounds for thousands of miles.
Yeah.
They listen to submarines with underwater microphones, like submarines coming out of Vladivostok in Russia, and they can listen to them in Iceland, the Navy, and they can actually tell exactly which submarine and which serial number, and they can hear that all the frequencies through the underwater microphones, because these sounds travel in the whale channels.
The water, yeah.
I mean, that's a kind of an interesting little side note, but it's about water being this optimum medium for sound.
Yeah, for sure.
Better than air.
Yeah, well, it travels faster, doesn't it? And of course, most of the planet is water, including us. So it's gonna.
You know, our whole system gets tuned up with sound. All the water in our bodies gets tuned up with crystal bowls and tuning forks and bells and gongs and, you know, whistles, bells and whistles. You know.
Do you want to tell us briefly about? You've done some experiments with water. Do you want to talk briefly about?
Well, Yeah, we've done things where we put sound frequencies into water and had things happen like desalinating salt water with sound. I have a research partner who did that, and playing frequencies into the water and playing the vortex math numbers that are the expansion of those solfeggios with hydrophones on. You've got a recording and it's running on auto reverse playing 24/7, and then the sounds are going down through the hydrophones, the underwater microphones, playing them down into the water and bringing a type of coherency to the water. And the goal is to help clean up water with sound frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And those are all vortex math numbers. You can check out the work of Marco Rodin and Randy Powell, who Randy Powell got his stuff from Marco Rodin, but Randy describes it very well. Those are all vortex math numbers, and they can plot those all on the surface of a torus, the tube torus, the donut shape. And those are very key numbers in terms of how energy moves in the world. So playing sound frequencies that are all those vortex math numbers is a code. And the typical differences between them is 111 hertz with most of the pairs of them. And that cell rejuvenation frequency affects all kinds of things in the brain. It's huge. I would have thought that would have been the more common one than the 110, by the way, from the sacred sites. But, I don't know all of the other nuances of how they choose between those two frequencies, or if anything's changed over time and altered the frequency at a temple that was maybe tuned to 111, now it's 110, or vice versa. I don't know.
If the Earth's got bigger, perhaps, or
there could be things happening there, but the whole sonic thing with water and communicating with hyperspace through water. And a lot of research now is being done with hydrogen and drinking H2, molecular hydrogen. That's a huge thing. Japan is big on that, and Australia's got some things. And Japan is going crazy for hydrogen-based things, everything from powering cars to well-being through drinking and inhaling hydrogen, because we're 62% hydrogen. And so this is something that's new to most people. That part of it, H2 is molecularly different, slightly. But right now, that's where a lot of the breakthroughs with water are coming through in health, with the hydrogen, H2.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because oxygen's quite big as well, isn't it, at the moment?
There's ways they work together,
and
how the two are important in working together. We got the four elements that 90-some% or 99% of our world is made of: hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon, those four elements. So I'm doing, some deep harmonic studies of those elements, part of my research, looking at these building blocks in life and how are they harmonically organized to get better. And not just that they are, what about them exactly? What is their song? That's basically what I'm doing. Everything I look at like that, the spherics and weather, various aspects of the periodic table of elements, all that. It's all looking at what is their song.
I've been
singing universe,
quite deeply at the crystal bowls and the carbon as well, with the shungite and just the whole sort of quartz.
I haven't isolated the sound frequency of shungite yet, but I'll get that.
I'm interested.
Certainly working with shungite, I have spheres and like I'm doing a lot of work right now with the Russian pyramids that are steeper, that they've studied from the Sudan area, and there's tremendous research in Russia and what they're doing to bring coherency to soil, to water, to weather, to human health.
Well, it's no mistake that the shungites actually come through now when we need it more than ever with the 5G. We're being bombarded with detrimental frequencies, and the Earth's gone, hey, don't worry, here's this shungite, this can protect you. So isn't it just wonderful? It's
amazing. I've only known about
really
for a few years
to know about that. You do. I'm just going to say, actually, you do keep coming up as David Gibson. This is not David Gibson, by the way, guys. This is Randy Masters.
From my classes that I teach for, it's actually now the Sound and Consciousness Globe Sound and Consciousness Institute, It used to be California Recording Institute, but it has a different name for a few years.
Yeah.
I don't think I've updated my bio.
Mhm.
But however, it's that school is having a big impact on people from all over the world
Yeah.
studying sound.
Yeah. Really, really busy. Yeah, everybody's
Yeah.
just so busy. It's amazing. I just want to talk about beautiful harmonic sounds from nature. This is from your website. The NASA Voyager 1 and 2 space probe recordings captured sounds from the electromagnetic spectrum in the atmospheres and solar winds around most of our planets and the rings of Saturn and Uranus. And Russian scientists discovered that injured cats purr to certain frequencies and are able to heal themselves with their sound. And now the Russians are applying those sounds to their cosmonauts and top athletes with remarkable results. And you then go on to talk about the Sonic Bloom project, which shows that healthy plants depend upon singing bird sounds to wake up natural growth patterns, and different species of birds affect plant processes differently. This whole kind of nature, this song
The
within
sonics
nature,
of nature.
everybody having their own song. And then you talk about Claude Debussy and Olivier Messiaen, who studied bird
These are the
calls,
birds, yeah.
and composer Joe Weed, who composed your entire CD of songs based on bird songs.
Yeah, Waltz of the Whippoorwill, he called it, Joe Weed. I've done a lot of work with him. He's a producer and a multi-instrumentalist and specializes in country and early American music and things. And he took bird songs and composed an entire recording where the melodies of the songs were all based on bird songs.
Beautiful.
I thought that was and using all acoustic instruments and fiddles and banjos and all of that type of thing. We've done a lot of projects. He's just a wonderful musician. The Nassau sounds, we have access to that thanks to Jeffrey Thompson.
Yes.
He went to and talked them into releasing those sounds where they had a special type of, let's call it a microphone, that translated the solar winds and information from the electromagnetic spectrum in those atmospheres around the planets translated into sound. It wasn't like if you stuck your ear out of the space capsule, you would hear those sounds. It was a electromagnetic translation through these special microphones. He uses those primordial sounds for a lot of things in healing. They're quite interesting. But what happened for me is a channel John Fox told me, almost 30 years ago, I guess now, to study the rings of Saturn for the sound healing in the rings of Saturn. Okay, John Fox has the channels Master Hilarion, and he also channels the book Starlight Elixirs by Fred Rubenfeld and Michael Smolkis, which is collecting starlight from different stars and making a remedy with it and using that. I've used that in classes that I've taught, connecting with star systems. So very interesting. So I went out and I got a friend of mine that worked on the Mars rover project that worked for NASA, got the lead Saturn ring project scientist information on Saturn's rings to me. And I analyzed it in a completely different way. And what I discovered from that is that all those rings were spinning in whole number multiples of either phi or phi squared, using a certain value for phi based on that I discovered in this. And they are all multiplied by certain whole numbers, like 270 times phi or 162 times phi squared or whatever. They were all harmonically perfectly organized, and they all address the resonant frequency of our DNA, of our 24-hour day. Every one of them. 100%. It was very interesting. I'll probably publish those findings. But there's some other very, very interesting things on the rings of Saturn that are quite controversial that have been discovered since I did that. Not on the harmonics of the rings, but on how those rings were created in the first place. And there's a whole book called The Ring Makers of Saturn that one can look up, and it's quite a story. That's a different story than one. That's not my mission to tell that story.
But is that also corresponding with the music of the spheres? The
Absolutely, yeah.
That is the electromagnetic spectrum, the resonance that gives off.
Yeah.
What they're
and those spin ratios that I found in the rings of Saturn is 100% coherent musical, a musical system.
Hmm.
And it used an important value of phi that I called the DNA phi value that I discovered in this.
Hmm.
And every one of them is a multiple of that. So there's a coherency that's deep.
Yeah.
I mean, we're right down to the decimals, very, very tight,
And so if we're open and receptive to that and attuned with nature, then presumably we're being bathed in that. I mean, we're being bathed in that all of the time anyway, but if we're open to it, then that's going to have a quite a prominent effect.
And what I did is I made tuning forks and some wind chimes to these rings frequencies, the sound frequencies of the rings.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
I have a particular sound healer friend who uses those tuning forks like more than anything, or used to use those tuning forks more than anything. It was getting profound results with people tuned to the harmonics of the rings of Saturn.
Wow. I'm going to look those up. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was quite a project, and I've got a lot of things like that aren't existing anywhere else because of the combination of backgrounds I have, where I stumble on these intersections of different kinds of knowledge,
Mm.
and then I dive down that rabbit hole and work it until I uncovered something in there, an algorithm.
I think this is really interesting as well. This is on your website as well. David Carson and the Little Wolf Band contain a song called Ballad of the Twisted Hair that has the sound of crickets singing, played many octaves lower, and the results sound like a choir of female human voices singing a simple diatonic, which is the same 7-note scale. Chord progression.
I thought of a major scale. Every chord,
It's
4 chords,
phenomenal.
every one is all out of that scale completely. There's no note that's missing, and they're all harmonies that you would hear in early classical music.
Amazing.
Handel and all of those composers use the same chord progressions exactly, and it's really mind-blowing. It's gone around in the sound healing circles, but that was a recording that this was on. Nothing else on the recording is like that. And Little Joe or something in the Little River Band, or this American Indian singer, and that's the only piece of music on the whole recording has anything to do with that. And that single piece of music has inspired people for years, of that sound of the crickets singing chords like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really something.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I've heard it. It's just like, wow, what are they tuned into?
Well, I analyzed it. I wanted to find out what exactly are they singing? How is this put together? So I studied it. And by the way, with that Russian part with the cat purr, see, cats would fall off high-rise buildings, multiple stories, and they'd hit the cement or hit the ground. And instead of dying and sort of splatting on the pavement, they would curl up and purr. And the next thing you know, the cats are up and running around and they heal themselves. So the Russians said, what is going on here?
Wow.
And what are these cats purring to? Well, they found out they're purring to mostly in octaves of 25 hertz, 50 hertz, 100 hertz, 200 hertz, okay? Those are all G-sharp notes, every one of those, pure G-sharp notes. Now, what I found that they didn't have, I read the papers and so on, is that 25 hertz is a frequency of the mitochondria. So you can have the cats purring in octaves of the mitochondria to turn on that life force.
Wow.
In other words, why G sharp? Why exactly those frequencies? And what is that note that's making this work? And of course, cats purr in their sweeps, but these were the main fundamental notes that they were reporting. And so then they give them to their cosmonauts and to their Olympic athletes. So if an Olympic athlete has 2 particular contests that he's entered into, he or she, that day, and giving it 100% could break them down to where they're not able to give 100% for the next event. If they can regenerate them, then they can get up and do the next event and be at 100%. Mm-hmm. And so I started studying that, and then I make tuning forks to those cat purr frequencies. Very interesting. I do a lot of that. I study a lot of things in science, and then I make tuning forks so we can carry them around with us, be free of electricity, and play with the forks, It's just my thing.
Get tuned, yeah. I love you.
I had years of these meditations and dreams or things, and I would get tuning forks. My guys would give me tuning forks. So my advice, what happened is when I got to the forks in the road, I picked them up. And I looked at what the frequency on those forks were, because I kept getting them all the time. Okay, I got it. I'm supposed to do stuff with tuning forks. And that's what happened.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. You say about 7 main frequencies called spherics, which also affect our weather, but one is in the audible range for humans.
I got those frequencies out of Hans Cousteau's The Cosmic Octave, and he listed them. And then I carefully analyzed them to find the prime numbers that were inside them. And supposedly these are certain sound frequencies that are part of the harmonic pattern in the weather. Now, I don't know all the nuances of how these frequencies change. Does it stay in a certain order and then the whole order shifts up and down? Or are there any changes? But basically, and harmonically, it would form a C major 6 chord like C, E, G, and A. That's what the notes would create. There's multiple C's, but the note was a B sharp. But anyway, just to make it easy for everybody, mainly like a C major 6 chord. A major triad C, major third E, fifth G, and a major sixth of A. And they used only certain harmonics in that structure, certain overtones only that were used. Very interesting mathematics in that. And I also found those same harmonics in studying the entire periodic table of elements.
Wow.
Were linked by 3 of those harmonics, not all 7 like in those spherics. Pretty interesting. I mean, this is 100% sound, not moving the frequencies to make it fudge factor to make it fit.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they were. Musical resonance physics, exactly. And musical as well as sound physics, but it forms a musical chord completely. And I go after things like that. I go, hey, what is this? How is it put together? Very, very interesting.
Yeah, and it's, it goes back to what we were saying at the start. Nothing is separate. It's like everything, there's too many coincidences here. There's too many things that marry up, and match up together. And I mean, we have gone over time, but I can't leave it without saying this, because this is actually a really important part of the conversation. And you say that numbers encoded into the measurement, we've kind of touched on this, but I just want to bring this in. Numbers encoded into the measurement of sacred sites in many cultures all around the world. The placement of the 3 main pyramids of Giza, Egypt, including the Great Pyramid, are aligned on the Earth in the exact ratio of 3 main stars in the belt of Orion. Many other star patterns are mirrored with the exact placement of sacred structures, temples, and monuments. But the pyramid complex for the entire world is precisely aligned, well, not but, the pyramid complex for the entire world is precisely aligned and positioned geometrically with the natural Earth measurements, showing an incredible alignment of humans and the cosmos.
Yeah, there's a book out called The Star Mirror. Beautiful title. So that what it's saying is the positioning in the stars is mirrored on Earth. Mm-hmm. And you get that at Teotihuacan in Mexico. The same placement is the 3 stars in the belt of Orion.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Annie Williams has studied this quite deeply as well, hasn't she?
Yeah, this is important to look at, and they're discovering more and more things, and recently in terms of even stars that they didn't know the Giza Pyramid was aligned with, like Cygnus and things like that are very important, that it's not just the 3 stars in the belt of Orion. And all the shafts are at a certain angle, so at a certain time of the year, starlight from a particular star goes through the shafts. And how they found the Hall of Records up in the K2 Karakoram range up there in Afghanistan, Pakistan area. There's a mountain there that looks like a big pyramid. And what they did is they took the shaft angles out of the Great Pyramid, and they made a triangle of these angles, and they laid it on in the right scale, and it perfectly pointed to the middle of the K2 Karakoram 2 mountain as being where these Akashic record field at least is. That's what Alexander the Great was looking for. He got close, but he didn't find it. But he was looking for that particular treasure of information. And how they solved it was through the angles of the shafts in the Great Pyramid.
Wow. Do you know what I want to ask you? I've just got to, I really want to ask you, what is the Holy Grail? That's a very profound question to ask you at the end of
there's many responses to that.
Yeah.
One is it's our DNA.
Yeah.
The whole God code, so to speak, and the God spark that we are, that's the essence of where any other Holy Grails could come out of as far as
It's the
humans are.
galactic information library.
Yeah, totally in there inside us. And a lot of beings from off campus, I call it, other planets, know that humans have this special God spark in them, that it's very unique, and they're fascinated by that, regardless of the behaviors from people who forget the God spark that they are and are acting according to conditioning and, unfortunate things that have happened in history and patterns that repeat themselves. Underneath it is this extraordinary human, the humans where the main fear is that we are powerful, not that we're not powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of that Holy Grail is in that the God spark DNA.
Yeah, love that.
That's my simplest response.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it just made me think then as well, both Dale Pond and David Shiremeyers both pretty much said that God was kind of hidden from us, our own godliness was almost, and it is actually magnetism,
And there's a whole story behind why it's hidden, how that came to be. And now we're in the process of unraveling that and uncovering that.
How
and to
religion
me,
was.
there's powers to be that do not want that God code to wake up, because all kind of nonsense everywhere you can imagine is going to stop.
Yeah.
So it's a war on consciousness now, not have us wake up to that spark.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's happening, and it's inevitable, and it's pretty
Dan Winter talks about it a lot. He's got a lot of things on his website and his research about that whole DNA and the code and how that part works relative to the Grail. And the shape of the Grail cup and how that works with the Taurus and all.
I love that. Yeah.
He's done spectacular work with that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. It was the cup that has no inside and no outside, wasn't it?
It's like a standing wave of the spirit consciousness.
And all built on the Fibonacci. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Randy, your work at the moment, where is it going? What's next for you?
Well, I've done research for years. It's time to actually put them out in books and papers, write some scientific papers. I've got a few out, but I'm going to start releasing this information now. And I'm working on that, which is sort of my harmonic view of the universe. Great. With numbers showing and stating exactly what I'm saying, not just giving it a poetic description like Music of the Spheres, but pointing to the exact number. This is what I mean. There it is. Duh. I didn't make it up. I'm just pointing out this relationship. It already existed, and that's what makes it work, as opposed to inventing things and moving numbers around. So I'm working on that, and then there's a lot of books I can write on music and the inner nature of music and composition and insights from the different the path that I've gone on. And I'm working on that and teaching sound healing and developing and doing research on everything like water and the sonic impact on reality, almost everywhere you can think about it. It interests me. And so that's what I'm working on there, and and I want to be able to take information that I've uncovered, discovered, recovered, whatever, and have it contribute toward life being better as a result of applying some of this.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's not designed to just sit around in file cabinets or in my head. I didn't do that work with that kind of dedication just to accumulate a bunch of paper.
Yeah, for sure. I'm the same. I've got so much I need to release.
So
started writing my book. Oh gosh, how long ago was it? I don't even want to say. It was over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Kind of nearly there.
I was going to have a book out in '93 with my research partner, Wesley Bateman, who wrote The Rods of Amun-Ra and did a 30-year study. I was 12 years in the study on the pyramids of Giza, every measurement and all the numbers and what they mean. We have vast amount of knowledge. And then he passed away, and it was going to be called Drums of Ice, Harps of Fire. the name of the book, and he passed away. We didn't do that, but that would have, where I would have put out a lot of things
Yeah.
that he doesn't have in his books, because when he met me, he thought that his work was done. And then I showed him some musical scales in his work, and it blew his mind, and the whole lid came off it. And then for another 20 years, he kept working. It
Yeah.
was that I learned, and that we had amazing things that we did. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of that would only really get put out if I put it out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fun to look at the Giza pyramids as textbooks in stone.
Amazing. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's a different way of looking at the numbers and the measurements.
Yeah.
Not just sacred geometry of the angles and that.
I've got to hook you and John up together, because I think, yeah.
Yeah, well, dude, thank you. I'm sure we're
a lot
gonna,
to talk about, I'm sure.
out of what you're doing here, more meaningful relationships are going to form, and that's a beautiful service that you're doing here to
Oh,
do
thank
this. And
you.
I
Well,
want
I mean,
very
I'm
best.
just completely passionate about it, and I love just the way everybody's kind of stepping forward and bringing their knowledge and, lifetimes research, and just bringing it all, to share for the world, to, ultimately to help people to, live a better life,
Exactly,
and
and take care of
help
this
help
planet.
the world, to
Yeah,
kind of, yeah, it's just really just getting back to how things should be, isn't it? We've got so far away from, I mean, it's all perfect. I'm not saying it's not perfect. Evolution is, everything is as it's meant to be, but it really is time that, we start listening to the earth, to ourselves.
sometimes I think of meant to be imperfect, but a lot of times I think some things are the way they are because we've allowed them to
Oh
be.
yeah,
Not
yeah,
that
yeah.
they were actually meant to go that way. We've
It's about the
allowed it.
voice. It's about the voice again, isn't it? For me, that's the
Mhm.
core of my work. And it's like, do you walk past something that you know is wrong and not speak? Or do you actually say? And how many of us, I'm English, I know what the Brits are like. It's like we'd rather not got in any bother, just to just walk on by, pretend you haven't seen it. I'm known as the kind of woman that's always, oh God, she's here again, causing
Oh, yeah, I can.
trouble, because I
Yeah.
say what I see and I say what I think is wrong. And I think that's something that we need to step up to more, just
Look at the problems in the world from people not speaking up.
be the voice for those that don't have a voice. The earth doesn't have a voice. I mean, she does. She'll let off, earthquakes,
Yeah.
and hurricanes, and tsunamis, and volcanoes, but people kind of maybe not necessarily still don't get that, oh, the earth's speaking to us, she's had enough. It's like,
Right. Yeah.
oh, look, that volcano's going off, no, it's like, mother's telling you, just for God's
We're
sake,
not being good
I'm
custodians
in
here.
trouble here.
We're trashing it. That whole thing with the breakaway culture, just trash the earth and go
Yeah.
to Mars or somewhere else.
We can't do it any. It's, we've got to get back to that connection. I love that, this summit is really so much about sacred sites and our divine energy and the indigenous, and just, becoming one with ourselves and with the earth again, and that it's because of, all your work, and, everybody that's kind of with us, and joined us, and just bringing all this amazing, just so much wonderful knowledge and wisdom of, how we can piece it all together again and become that one whole that we are.
Yeah, that's right. Be living the wholeness that we are.
We are already that. We just need to remember that.
Yes.
Randy, you're offering a 15% discount.
Mhm. On any tuning forks on my website, and just have people email me with what they'd like, including things that aren't even listed. I have tons of things that I haven't even listed on my website. Whatever they're interested in, just to email me. And if they're connected here with the summit, I'll give them a 15% discount on any of the tuning forks.
Bless you. That's amazing.
And I make custom tuning forks for people for things that no one else is making. I mean, that's my specialty.
Yeah.
So
I'm
fun.
signing up for that for sure.
Totally fun. So I thought that'd be a good way I can contribute here.
I think that's absolutely beautiful. It's really generous and really open-hearted. And I just, I want to thank you so much for joining us and you just brought a wealth of amazing information that I'm sure people, are just going to be like, wow. I had no idea, just
Well,
definitely a lot to
I
think
intend it to be uplifting
about.
for people and to
Yeah.
inspire them in some ways or anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, what you said as well, it's just, just bringing it together, there's just the whole summit is just so many amazing different, it's like the pieces of the puzzle. I see it as, it's just like everybody's bringing their own kind of piece of the puzzle. And you've kind of brought this overview of, the frequencies and how it all kind of fits together. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Well, I hope you'll have fun editing from it because we're just free flowing
We've
here.
gone way over. I might just leave it because, to be honest, I wouldn't have a clue what to cut out of that. There's just so
Well,
much
I'm just
amazing.
being, I'm not even, yeah, I'm just hanging here with you.
Okay, bless you. Thank you so much.
You're
Really great
welcome. Keep me
talk.
posted and let me know how others can hear it. And if there's
I
a
will for sure. I'll be emailing you soon.
copy of the interview, you could send me some way too, if you can do
Yeah,
that,
absolutely. Oh yes,
Dropbox or
you'll
whatever.
be bombarded by emails with me soon from me
All
soon.
right. Big, well, let's have fun. And there's
Yeah.
beautiful people that that seems like I should meet them and hang out too. So
Oh, bless you. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I want
I'm
to.
hoping to come over there soon. So,
All
anyway,
right.
thank you so much, lovely people, for tuning in. And yeah, I do hope you've managed to listen to all of this. If not, come back and do it in 2 parts because it's just absolutely full of amazing.
Anytime we have fun. I had a wonderful time.
That's great. Okay, thank you
Mhm.
so much, people, and
Okay.
we'll see you next time.
Okay.
For some more amazing wisdom in the world of transformational sound and voice therapy. Blessings and peace.